You ever walk into a room thinking you're about to get what you earned and walk out wondering if you ever mattered at all? That's what happened at 10:52 a.m. on a cloudy Thursday morning in Conference Room B. The calendar invite said, Quarterly Review and Bonus Discussion. I'd triple-checked the title. I even wore the navy blazer I only pull out for real wins. Jack was already seated when I arrived, pen in hand, posture rigid, not smiling, not making eye contact. The blinds were drawn, and the room felt colder than usual. Something was off. We're implementing a departmental restructure, he started, voice flat. There's been some rethinking around leadership alignment. I didn't say anything. I waited. That kind of corporate preamble only ever means one thing. Someone's getting sidelined. Kathy, effective Monday, you'll be supporting Gavin as we transition client strategy under his direction. I blinked. Supporting Gavin? Yes, Jack said quickly. We think it's a better fit. He brings a fresh perspective. Gavin, the same junior associate who once forwarded a confidential client memo to the wrong listserv's Gavin, who'd asked me how to format a slide deck 2 days ago. And the Lanson deal? I asked, keeping my voice steady. Jack's eyes shifted. He tapped his pen. That's being integrated into the new structure. Integrated, not your deal, not even congratulations, just absorbed, no bonus, no recognition, no mention that I had secured the firm's largest client this quarter, just reshuffling, realignment, corporate fluff. I sat there, nodding slowly like my bones had gone hollow. Hi, I'm Kathy. 2 weeks ago, I led the strategy team at Aldridge & Rowe. Today, I learned I've been quietly erased, not because I failed, but because I made the wrong person look small. Before I go on, have you ever been blindsided in a room where you expected to be celebrated? If you have, I want to hear your story. Hit like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Because the moment that door closed behind me, I knew this wasn't the end. It was the start of something they didn't see coming. I didn't cry right away, not in the meeting, not in the elevator, not even in the parking lot. What I felt wasn't sadness, not at first. It was more like a strange kind of numbness, like I'd been hollowed out without realizing it. I sat in my car for a long time, just staring at the dash. The digital clock blinked 11:17 a.m., but my head was still stuck in that cold little conference room. My fingers hovered over my phone, debating whether to call someone. Anyone. But who do you call when you don't even know how to explain what's been taken from you? 6 years. That's how long I gave them. 6 years of 70-hour weeks, of red-eye flights and missed birthdays, of smoothing over client meltdowns and taking late calls on vacation. I'd built their client trust from scratch. When I joined Aldridge & Rowe, our portfolio in enterprise tech was non-existent by this year. It accounted for 38% of quarterly revenue, all of it anchored by me. And Jack knew that. He didn't just know it, he promised me. If you close Lanson, I'll push you to partner, full vote, he'd said. 2 months ago. It wasn't a favor, it was a deal. I delivered. He erased me. I pulled up my inbox and searched for annual partner retreat. Usually, the invite landed around this time. Nothing. I checked my archive. Still nothing. Then I opened the shared HR folder. There it was. Partner review, final voting sheet, updated 2 days ago. I scrolled down slowly, heart thudding harder with each row. And there it was. In plain Helvetica font, Kathy Donovan, removed from ballot. The note beside it read, no longer under consideration following strategic realignment. No mention of my deal, no explanation, just gone. A few rows down, I saw another name, Gavin McKenna, submitted for consideration. I felt the sting rise like bile. The same kid who asked me how to forward a calendar invite last quarter was now being reviewed for partnership. That's when it hit me. They never meant to reward me. They just needed me to finish the job. And once I did, I became inconvenient. I closed my laptop slowly, feeling my chest tighten. 6 years of everything I had, gone with a silent edit in a Google Sheet. No thank you, no call, just a digital deletion. It wasn't just betrayal, it was erasure. I didn't panic, I didn't fumble, I just opened the file. That's what I remember most from that Friday night. How quiet it was inside me. Not rage, not fear, just clarity. Like when you're driving through thick fog and suddenly, everything clears. 3 weeks before the demotion. The Lanson deal was on the verge of collapse. We were in the final round. Contracts had gone back and forth for weeks. Everyone was tense. Mira Tran, Lanson's CFO, had sent an urgent email that afternoon. We need signed documents by end of weekend. Otherwise, we're reopening bids Monday. I forwarded the message to Jack. No reply. 7:40 p.m. I called his cell, voicemail. Then I tried Sarah from legal. She picked up, groggy, irritated. Can this wait until Monday? No, I said. We'll lose them. Kathy, I'm out of state with my kids. If you've got red lines, send them and I'll try Sunday night. That was it. The biggest deal Aldridge and Rowe had touched in 5 years. And I was the only person in the building who seemed to care. I stared at the unsigned contract on my screen. $12 million. The culmination of 4 months of negotiating, rewriting, smoothing egos, reworking payment schedules. My work. That's when I opened a different folder. One I hadn't touched in over 6 months. KDK Strategy Group, Legal Docs. It started as a backup plan. After the last reorg, I'd quietly registered my own LLC, just in case things went sideways. I never thought I'd actually need it. But now it was the only name I could trust to move this deal forward. I revised the contract, just one field. Service provider became KDK Strategy Group. Everything else remained identical. Before I hit send, I searched my inbox for a message from Jack dated 6 weeks earlier. Subject: Authority to execute, Lanson. In it, he'd written, use your judgment if time is tight. Final call is yours. That was enough. More than enough. I signed it. Attached all supporting documentation. Then, just before pressing send, I glanced at the framed photo on my desk. Me and the team at last year's kickoff dinner. Back when I still believed loyalty earned protection. 8:04 p.m. I hit send and sat very still. Not triumphant, not angry, just still. I wasn't trying to betray anyone. I was trying to save the company from itself. They didn't know it yet, but I had just become the sole legal owner of the most important contract in Aldridge and Rowe's entire pipeline. Not because I wanted power, because I was the only one who showed up when it mattered. The email subject line was simple: Lanson, next steps. I opened it without thinking, like a muscle memory from 6 years of doing everyone else's work. Sent. 7:41 a.m. From Jack Foreman. To me. Kathy, please finalize onboarding documents for Lanson and coordinate initial handoff to Gavin by Thursday. Thanks. No greeting, no signature, no mention of the fact that the $12 million contract existed because I had dragged it, bloody and breathing, across the finish line. Just another task. I read it twice. Then closed my laptop. Not yet. Instead, I walked into the kitchen and made coffee, slowly. The act itself felt like defiance. I poured the cream with 2 fingers, stirred it in silence, then walked back to my desk like I wasn't holding a grenade in my inbox. 10 minutes passed, then 15. I didn't answer Jack's email because something in me wanted to wait. It was a strange, charged stillness, like standing in a locked room while knowing the key is in your pocket, but choosing not to move just yet. Then, at 8:12 a.m., my personal inbox pinged. Subject: Quick confirmation, payment routing, from Mira Tran, Lanson Data Tech. To me. Hi, Kathy. Just confirming we're sending the initial wire to KDK Strategy Group as signed. Correct? Let me know if any changes. I stared at the screen. Not Aldridge. KDK. My hands didn't shake, but my breath caught. This wasn't just a clerical moment. This was validation, proof that I hadn't simply slipped the contract past everyone. Mira hadn't even blinked. She expected it. She trusted me. And in that second, I knew something that made the air feel different. I wasn't just the person who got the deal signed. I was the deal. I clicked reply, typed 3 words. Confirmed, as signed. Then paused. Did I send it? No. Instead, I opened a blank draft in another window and began typing something else. Subject, resignation, to Jack Foreman. Jack, effective immediately. I will be stepping away from my role at Aldridge and Rowe. I didn't finish the message. Not yet. I stared at the blinking cursor for a long time, then clicked Save as Draft. Because timing, I've learned, is everything. They thought I was a tool to close a deal, but Mira knew the truth, and now, so did I. I didn't respond to Jack's email that day. I didn't need to. His request landed in a world that was no longer his to manage. The money hit at 6:12 p.m. $4 million, wired directly to KDK Strategy Group's business account. It came in silently, no alert, no sound, just a new line of digits on a plain white background. Clean, clinical. I stared at it for a full minute. Then another. My coffee had gone cold next to me, but I didn't reach for it. You'd think that moment would feel like a victory, but it didn't. It felt like silence. I was still sitting at my desk in the dark, save for the dull glow of the screen. The blinds were half closed. Outside, the city had begun to wind down, lights and windows blinking to life, cars moving slower, more tired. I hadn't turned on any lamps. I didn't want to. I was officially richer than I'd ever been in my life, and somehow, I felt poorer than ever. I wasn't supposed to be alone for this. There was no team celebration, no champagne toast, no Jack calling to say, "Well done, Kathy." Just me in a room that felt too quiet, too still, too empty. 6 years at Aldridge, 6 years of building, leading, mentoring, birthdays skipped, flights delayed, relationships sacrificed. I gave them everything I had, every ounce of loyalty, every late night, every early morning. And now? I was the only one who knew I'd won. I leaned back slowly, staring at the ceiling. My chest felt tight, like something heavy had settled inside and didn't want to move. I hadn't cried in months, maybe years. But now, the tears came, not loud, not dramatic, just quiet and relentless, the kind that spill out because you've been holding them back for far too long. Then the phone rang. Mira Tran, Lanson Data Tech. I hesitated, wiped my face, answered. "Kathy," she said gently, "I just wanted to say congratulations. We're excited to move forward, with you." She paused, then added something I'll never forget. "We signed with you, not your firm. That was always the difference." I couldn't speak right away, just nodded into the receiver, knowing she couldn't see me. That sentence, that tiny bit of recognition, meant more than any bonus ever could. After we hung up, I reopened the draft email to Jack. Subject, resignation, this time. I didn't hesitate. I clicked send, and for the first time in weeks, I exhaled. It started with a message I wasn't meant to see. Nicole from finance accidentally copied me into a Slack thread at 1:13 p.m. Jack, just flagging this. Lanson payment didn't land in our account. Want me to check with their AP? I didn't respond. I just stared at the screen, knowing exactly why that payment hadn't arrived. By 1:45 p.m., Mira replied to Jack directly. Already wired. Sent to KDK Strategy Group, per the signed agreement. And just like that, I could imagine the panic sliding across Jack's face. See? For 6 years, Jack never asked me twice. He delegated, then disappeared. When things went right, he took the credit. When they went wrong, I was suddenly CC'd on every angry email. This time, he handed me full authority in writing and walked off the field. I waited. By 2:20 p.m., the emergency meeting had begun. Jack, HR, legal, finance, all in a glass-walled room I used to lead sessions in, from my home office. I could picture it clearly. The awkward glances, the unspoken question, what exactly did Kathy do? I imagined Sarah from legal pulling up that email. If legal's backlogged, use your judgment. You have full execution rights. His words, not mine. I didn't need to be there to feel the heat building. Then, at 2:20 p.m., I received an email from Angela in HR. Hi, Kathy. As part of our transition process, please return all company files, client agreements, and proprietary documents from your time with Aldridge and Rowe. No subject line, no warmth. I let it sit for 10 minutes, then typed slowly, deliberately. Hi, Angela. Thank you for the note. For clarity, all contracts and materials in my possession are legally held by KDK Strategy Group. Under executive authority granted by Aldridge and Rowe leadership, nothing I currently hold belongs to the company. Best. Kathy Donovan. I reread it 3 times before sending. Not a single extra word, just truth. At 2:38 p.m., I clicked send. At 2:38 p.m., my attorney followed up with a cease and desist addressed directly to Jack. It was short, brutal, and perfectly calm. I asked her not to add emotion, just law. The email included phrases like ongoing harassment, unauthorized claims, and legal recourse pending further contact. I didn't want to sue. I just wanted the noise to stop. But the irony wasn't lost on me. Jack had handed me control, and now he was scrambling to take it back. He used to sit at the top of the org chart. Now, he was just another man reading legalese he never expected to face. I stood by the window, watching the sky grow dim outside. I wasn't angry. I wasn't smug. I just felt finished. They started this fight, but I'd already signed the ending. The board meeting was scheduled for Thursday morning at 9:00 a.m. I wasn't there, of course, but I knew it was coming. I knew the agenda, the pacing, the timing. I'd written those scripts for years. And I also knew Jack, how he would try to downplay the damage before anyone realized what was missing. But Lanson's absence from the revenue forecast, that was a wound no spreadsheet could hide. By 9:43 a.m., I got the first sign that things had gone south. A former colleague, Owen from the business intelligence team, texted me 4 words. Jack is sweating bullets. I stared at the message for a moment, then set my phone down without replying. In that meeting room, I could imagine it. Long oak table, 12 leather chairs, screens on both ends, flashing dashboards and quarterly updates. I'd presented in that room a dozen times. I'd seen Jack shine in front of the board, calculated, confident, always one step ahead. But this time, the numbers didn't back him. I would learn later, from more than one source, that the question came from Elaine Merrick, one of the longest-standing board members. Where is the Lanson revenue? Apparently, Jack fumbled the response. Something about onboarding delays, paperwork, transitions. Elaine pressed, "We were told this contract was finalized weeks ago." That's when the audit committee chair stepped in. "We don't have a signed copy in our records. Legal hasn't logged execution. The client's name doesn't appear in our receivables." Silence, someone asked. "Who finalized it?" And finally, Jack said it. "My former strategist, Kathy Donovan." He didn't elaborate, didn't explain how I wasn't with the company anymore, didn't mention the LLC, didn't mention that he gave me the authority in writing. He just let my name hang in the room like smoke. I didn't feel proud or vindicated. I felt separate. I wasn't part of their story anymore. And that afternoon, at 1:06 p.m., I received an email from Elaine's assistant. Ms. Merrick would like to schedule a private discussion regarding recent events. Are you available for a call this week? I thought about it for a moment, then replied, Thank you. I appreciate the outreach. At this time, I prefer not to engage directly. However, I've attached a summary report outlining the current status of the Lanson contract, including timeline, legal authority, and client communication history. It was a quiet refusal, but in that report, I made one thing clear. The contract was signed by me. The payment was made to me. The client was loyal to me, not the company, not Jack. Me. I never heard from Elaine again, but I did hear from Owen later that week. Jack didn't say a word after you replied, just sat there, red-faced. Someone else had to finish the meeting. I imagined him in that chair, once powerful, now small, and all I could think was, you should have signed your own deals. Rumors move faster than press releases. In our industry, it only takes one unanswered email, one deal that doesn't land where it's expected. And suddenly, people start asking questions. Quietly at first, then publicly, then with intent. By the following Tuesday, just after 9:15 a.m., I received a message from a name I hadn't seen in months. Subject: Coffee? It was from Lindsay Maher, a former client at Stratapath who'd always CC'd me on everything, even though Jack insisted she go through the proper channels. I replied, Name the place and time. We met that afternoon at a cafe downtown. I arrived early, chose a table in the back, and watched through the window as Lindsay spotted me. She walked in fast, eyes full of questions. Kathy, she said, breathlessly. So it's true? I didn't ask what she meant. I just smiled. I'm guessing you've heard about KDK. She laughed, not unkindly. Heard? It's all over the advisory forums. No one saw it coming. She leaned forward. Was it revenge? I shook my head. It was timing. We didn't talk contracts that day, not directly, but she made one thing clear. If I opened the door, she'd walk through it. By 5:40 p.m., she sent a formal inquiry. 2 days later, we signed a 3-month retainer, and that was only the beginning. The next week, I heard from Marcus Zhao, former data lead at Aldridge. I'd mentored him 3 years ago when he was still triple-checking every spreadsheet like his life depended on it. He'd grown, and everyone knew it. So when he called me out of the blue at 10:30 a.m. on a Friday, I picked up. I don't like how they handled things, he said, no preamble. I'm not surprised, I replied. I've got options, but I'd rather build something with you. My team's loyal, and we have 2 clients ready to move if I move. That gave me pause, not just because of the offer, but because of the weight of it. He was betting on me, without fanfare, without begging, just a steady hand reaching for another. We met that evening. He brought a folder, 2 non-compete clauses he'd already vetted, and a list of infrastructure requirements. It wasn't flashy. It was real. By 7:00 p.m., we shook hands in my living room. By Monday, he was onboarded. By Thursday, the 2 clients had signed. There was no victory parade, no viral LinkedIn post, but something had shifted. I could feel it in the calls I got from people I used to chase. I could hear it in the way Mira spoke to me now, like a peer, not a vendor. And I saw it most clearly in the moment I signed the lease on my new office. It was a quiet afternoon, 2:15 p.m. The property manager, a kind-eyed man named Leonard, handed me a thick folder of documents. I signed each one with calm certainty. When we walked through the space, light-filled, with wide windows and soft oak floors, he stopped at the front door. We can have your name on the glass by end of week, he said. I paused. Not Aldridge. Not a project code. Not a title underneath someone else's. Just my name. K.D. Donovan, I said softly. Black lettering. Centered. He smiled. Done. I stood there a little longer after he left, palms resting on the cool glass, watching the sun spill in, for the first time in a long time. I wasn't proving anything. I was just present, and quietly, completely proud. The request came in just after 1:30 p.m. Subject line, meeting, sender, Jack Foreman. I stared at it for a full minute before opening it. Kathy, would appreciate the chance to talk directly. Let me know if you have availability today or tomorrow. In person preferred. No explanation, no context. Just those oddly clipped sentences, like he was trying to keep it professional, like he hadn't spent the past 2 weeks unraveling behind closed doors. I didn't respond right away. I needed time to think. So I went for a walk. The sky was pale gray. The air crisp with the kind of breeze that wakes you up just by touching your skin. I walked through the city blocks that used to feel like battlegrounds, conversations rehearsed in elevators, smiles forced in boardrooms. Now, they just felt like space. By 3:15 p.m., I replied, let's meet at 4:30 p.m., corner conference room at East Point offices. 1 hour. Short, precise, mine. I arrived first and set the stage. Water poured. Blinds angled just so. One chair at the head, the other opposite. When Jack entered at exactly 4:29 p.m., he looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically, but energetically. The man who once filled every room with unearned certainty now seemed unsure. Kathy, he said, offering a tight nod. Thanks for taking the time. I nodded, but didn't smile. Sit. He did. There was a long silence. He glanced at the water, but didn't touch it. I'll get straight to it, he said. This hasn't been an ideal transition. Emotions have run high. But I think we both know there's still value in collaboration. I let him finish. The words felt rehearsed, like a speech built from talking points he didn't quite believe. I'm proposing, he continued, that we find a way to work together, possibly through a joint advisory structure. You'd maintain KDK. We'd co-lead the Lanson account under a unified agreement. I reached into my folder without a word and pulled out a document. It was a new retainer agreement from Lanson, signed 2 days ago. 3 years, $30 million. Sole provider, KDK Strategy Group. I slid it across the table. Jack read it, blinked, swallowed. I waited, finally. He looked up. So it's official? Yes, I said. It's been official. This meeting is a courtesy, Jack. He looked like he wanted to say something, maybe an apology, maybe an excuse, but I didn't give him the space. You didn't choose me when it mattered, I said, voice steady. Now, I get to choose not to choose you. There it was, the weight I'd carried for years, the need to be seen, to be picked, to be validated by someone who only ever saw me as a tool. Gone. Not with drama, not with shouting, just gone. He nodded, slowly. I misread things. You did more than misread, I said. You underestimated. There was a pause, a long one, and then he stood. Congratulations, Kathy. He meant it, or maybe he didn't. But either way, it didn't matter. I waited until he was gone before I let myself breathe deeply. My chest expanded in a way it hadn't in years. The silence didn't feel empty anymore. It felt earned. Outside. The sun had dipped lower, casting soft gold through the window. 4:46 p.m. I stood alone, exactly where I needed to be. Not above anyone, just finally, completely, free. The new nameplate was installed at 9 o'clock a.m. Black lettering, frosted glass, centered, just like I'd asked. K.D. Donovan Strategy Group. I stood outside the office for a long moment. taking it in, not rushing to unlock the door, not snapping a photo for LinkedIn, just breathing. It had taken me 6 years to climb the ladder, and exactly 3 months to walk away from it. I unlocked the door and stepped into the space I now called my own. The air still smelled like fresh paint and cedar. Sunlight stretched across the hardwood floors like a welcome mat. Inside, the hum of a Monday morning was already alive. Marcus was down the hall, reviewing projections with his team. Lindsay had just arrived, coffee in one hand, phone in the other. We'd signed 2 new accounts the week before. Mira from Lanson had introduced me to a private equity contact in Paris. Word was spreading, but there was no frenzy, no posturing, just steady, quiet movement. Exactly the culture I'd once tried to build within someone else's structure, now finally free to live and breathe on its own. At 10:07 a.m., I sat at my desk, not Jack's desk, not a borrowed chair near the window, but my desk, and opened my calendar. There was one new meeting request. Subject: Strategic Acquisition Inquiry from Andrew Koenig, Managing Partner. Templar Holdings time. Requested, this week, flexible. The message was short and polite. We've been following your firm's momentum closely. Would love to explore an offer. Fully funded. Global rollout potential. Are you open to a conversation? I reread it once, then again. Templar Holdings was no small name. If I had received this email even 6 months ago, I might have printed it out and framed it. But today, I simply replied, "Thank you, Andrew. I'm not looking to sell at this time. We're just getting started." I hit send and felt a deep, quiet satisfaction settle into my chest. It wasn't just that I had said no to power. It was that I no longer needed permission to say yes to myself. I looked around the office again, taking in the glass walls, the hum of new beginnings, and the people who had chosen to be here, not for titles, not for safety, but for belief. They used to say I was too sharp, too fast, too much. Now, they just called me boss. And here's the part no one tells you, sometimes. Freedom doesn't come from rebellion. It comes from refusal. Refusal to shrink. Refusal to stay where you're tolerated. Refusal to play small in a world that was built for comfort. Not courage. They demoted me because they thought I was small. But I wasn't born to fit inside the frame they built. I was born to build my own. If you've ever been told to wait your turn, to tone it down, to know your place, I hope this story reminded you that your value doesn't depend on someone else's vision. You don't need a title to lead. You don't need permission to take up space. If this resonated with you, share it, subscribe, and in the comments, tell me the moment you realized you were meant to walk your own path. Because that moment, that's where freedom begins.